Hello everyone and welcome to Purple Rose Crafts. Today we're going to go through the process of how to create our Tunisian crochet. So we're using our Tunisian crochet hook here that's similar to a knitting needle with a stopper on the end. We're using a 4.5mm hook for this, and it does have, of course, our crochet tip as we would usually do with crochet. All right, and as far as our materials, we're using our Bernat Handicrafter cotton in our lovely soft gray color. So we're starting out with a standard chain row, the way that we usually start our crochet. So from here, basically you can chain any number of stitches, either follow a pattern, or you can start with at basically any number because there's no specifications. Now, when you're doing this, you do want to ensure that your chain row is looser than normal because it will tighten up once we start getting our Tunisian stitches into it. All right, so first things first, we're going to take our crochet hook and we're going to insert it into the second chain from our hook. So we're going to insert it into the back loop. So see here, we've got basically three parts of our chain. When we turn it over, we've got our two that make the chain on the front here, and then we've got this kind of back loop here. And so that's actually where we're going to work our Tunisian stitches, okay, for this first row. So we're going to insert our hook into all of those, into that loop, yarn over, and then we're going to draw up a loop on our hook. Now, nothing's going to happen with this loop at this point. We're going to leave it there. Okay, and now we're going to work our way all the way across the row, inserting back into that back loop here, and yarn over, and draw up a loop. Again, through that back loop again, yarn over, and draw up a loop. And we're going to continue in this fashion until we have 30 loops on our hook. All right, so here we are at the end of the row. We've basically looped up a stitch for each one of our chains that we created. And as you can see, it's nice and loose, okay? So just make sure you keep things looser than you kind of anticipate if you were to use regular crochet, okay? So now we're going to take our loop, and we're going to start by just chaining the first loop from our hook. So draw through just the first loop. Now we're going to yarn over again, and from here on out, we're going to go through 2 loops on our hook, and then we're going to yarn over, go through 2 loops on our hook, and continue doing 2 loops at a time all the way back to the beginning of the row until we have just 1 loop left on our hook. So as we're working our way back along the row, what I actually like to do is I like to kind of push the stitches or hold my hook back a little further. So I'm actually holding onto the hook and not onto all the stitches that I'm working. It just seems to give the crochet hook a little bit easier time traveling along the work as I go, okay? And just make sure you're only chaining, or you're only basically finishing off a single crochet. You're just pulling it through 2 loops on the hook all the way back along the row. All right, and here we come to the end of the row. We have our last loop, and we're going to pull off there. All right, so far our first row doesn't really look like a whole lot yet. You can see we have a little bit of a difference that's happening between each of our stitches. We have each of these like little vertical posts, and then basically the rest of our stitch is actually happening in the back. And you can also see here there's some holes that are happening. That's normal when we've only done 1 row. What will actually happen is once we work the second row is it'll actually push this row down to kind of cover up those holes, okay? So now for the second row, so that was just our first row, okay? So 1 pass forward and 1 pass back is all only considered 1 row, okay, in Tunisian crochet. And now we're going to insert our hook into those posts that I was just showing you at the beginning. Okay, so we're going to insert our hook over the post from the beginning of our Tunisian stitches. Okay, so now we're going to loop our yarn over and pull it back and keep it on our hook. Okay, so yarn over and down through that vertical post that we're seeing. Okay, now you won't actually see that change that I mentioned about the holes until after we finish our second row, so don't worry if yours looks similar to mine and there's a bunch of kind of wonkiness happening. That's normal, but once we get a little bit further down into our Tunisian crochet, then it will look much better. Okay, so we're going to keep looping up our loops through our vertical posts, and we're going to go and continue our first row again on the way back once we get finished. All right, so here we are at the end of our row. We've worked all of our stitches over that vertical post, and now we're ready to go ahead and do our last one. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually insert our hook in between basically the vertical post here and the last step from the end of the row. Okay, so we're going to put it through all of those loops to kind of give us a good anchor point for that first backwards pass. Okay, so now we've done our chain for our first one, and now we're going to go ahead and continue the way we've made the backwards pass on our first row through 2 loops and 2 loops and 2 loops all the way back across our row. All right, so this is just a regular Tunisian crochet stitch, and there is another variation which actually will be coming in an upcoming video. But so far, if you like what we're doing, go ahead and hit that like button, and feel free to hit the subscribe button below and the bell to be notified of future videos. We post new videos every Wednesday, so stay tuned for that. So we're going to continue working through that vertical post that we were showing on the initial second row here that we've started, which would be this vertical one. So we've got our vertical there, and now we've got our vertical just above it. This is going to continue to make this kind of like ladder type of stitch up our cloth. So we're going to continue working in that fashion along our rows until our cloth reaches its desired size. In our case, I usually make mine approximately square, but you can do as you like. Sometimes a rectangle is a perfect option as well. Sometimes if I make my cloth a little narrow, then I will move forward into making it more of a rectangular shape. All right, so there we go. We finished our second row, and as you can see, the first row here now looks a lot more clean, and there isn't a lot of like holes happening here in the bottom, but you can see the holes that are happening in our second row. So once we kind of move along our cloth, that will of course take up a lot of that spacing. So you can see those ones down here at the bottom don't have any holes, and then the second row that we just finished of course does. So as we continue along, it's going to look a little bit more like that first row, and we'll continue working in that way. All right, just for yourself as well, when we look at the back side of the cloth, it really does just look like a whole bunch of purl stitches. So we're looking at almost like knitting in this fashion as well. All right, and we'll be back in just a quick moment with the finishing row. So there is a difference for the last row as well, to kind of prevent these holes from happening, or just to kind of go back over and make sure that they settle down into their proper spot. Okay, so we'll be back in a moment with that. All right, so we are back. Now we have our dishcloth here that is basically finished. We just need to finish off our top row. As you can see, when we stop crocheting through that top row, we end up with sort of like a bit of a holy section. So what we want to do is we actually want to push it down and make it look like the rest of the cloth. But what I'm noticing here as we kind of got a little further into the cloth is that it does tend to roll up. Right, so if you can see here what's happening at the bottom, we've got some rolling happening through here. That's normal with Tunisian crochet. It's just because of the size of the crochet hook that we're using. If you use a little bit larger crochet hook than what the yarn calls for, it doesn't actually roll up as much. To combat this, actually what we're going to do is we're just going to grab a regular crochet hook and we're going to single crochet around the whole outside of the cloth to kind of give us like a nice even basically nice looking border. But in order to go ahead and crochet, finish the crochet dishcloth, we're going to cinch down here and we're going to come back onto our crochet hook. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to continue crocheting back into the same stitches we were doing before. So we're catching that vertical bar as we did in the main bulk of the cloth, but at this point now we're going to bring our loop through and then actually through the second one as well. So that's going to give us our nice crochet edge for our cloth. Okay, so we're going to loop our yarn over and come back up, and we're going to take our loop and pull it through basically the vertical bar and the loop from our hook as well. Okay, so now we're going to do that again. So coming through our vertical bar, yarn over, come through, and then come through the one on our hook. Now what you can see happening here is that we're actually putting or like creating that regular Tunisian stitch from what we had before. So you can see hopefully here we've got some, you know, looseness, a little bit of, you know, the holes happening there. But once we create our finishing basically slip stitch, it's going to go ahead and create that back down into a regular Tunisian stitch with a nice, you know, cabled top as we would normally have for most crochet stitches. So we're just going to go ahead and finish this off, and then we're going to start a single crochet border around the outside to kind of give us that nice crocheted edge. Now there is definitely lots of options. You can see where changing colors is a good idea in amongst your rows. I didn't do that for this cloth, but it's definitely something that you can do. And I'll probably show that in an upcoming video. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button and and the bell to be notified of future videos. Thank you for joining us with Purple Rose Crafts. If you like what we did today, click the like button below, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell so you'll be notified of future videos. Also, in the comment section below, tell me what more you'd like to see on the channel.